Good evening, everyone. Welcome to ANC 3F's July meeting. I am calling this meeting into order. We'll now do the roll call. Ryan Kudemis Brunoli,
Here.
3F01. 3F02, Terry Hewitt.
Here.
3F03, Mitch Baer.
Here.
3F05, James Tenderick.
Present.
3F06, Courtney Carlson.
Here.
Next item on the agenda is adoption of last month's meeting agenda. The only change I had was there was a vote on redoing the website, but it just says website design, and we're not paying for just website design. The July agenda had the full description of what we're paying for, because it's data transfer, cataloging. There's almost 5,000 materials that needed to be transferred, or documents that need to be transferred to this new website. So a lot of that was having to go through those documents and reorganizing that for our website. So I just wanted to make sure that we update the language because we're not paying for just the website design.
Yep. I sent out an updated agenda, or rather updated minutes using the agendas language a couple minutes ago.
Okay, so if I can get approval on the updated agenda with language correctly reflecting what we're actually paying for the website.
I motion to approve the amended updated minutes as posted by Ryan.
I second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstained? And the motion passes. Next item on the agenda is approval of, oh my goodness, I mixed this all up. So we just voted on the meeting minutes for last month. Now we need to vote on tonight's agenda. Sorry about that. And tonight's agenda, the only thing I will add is approval of Q1, 2, and 3 quarterly reports. Once we get to that point, Commissioner Baer will do a brief explanation. But can I get a motion to approve? Are there any?
Drop the link to that in the chat. I can't seem to pull it up on my email, and I didn't print it out. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Can you pop a link to the agenda in the chat? It's not in my email. Thank you.
If someone could do that.
Thank you.
For me.
I can forward it to you again, Courtney.
Thanks. It wasn't in my email, so I just had it from our executive meeting, but I don't have it. The final version.
Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended
I so move.
with the quarterly reports?
Yeah. I so move.
Second, any
I
second?
second it.
Any all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstained? And the motion passes. Moving on to the next item is approval of ANC 3F quarterly reports for Q1, 2, and 3.
Right. And James, can you pull up now what we have done in for the first quarter and the second quarter reports is we've actually approved them. Evidently, the Office of the ANC wanted us to revise that agenda item, but you've already approved the quarterly reports. And so if you can just show them again, James, I guess we can go through them, but we had gone through quarter one and quarter two already. So if you can just move forward to two and then three, we can dwell on three if people would like to talk about it. Okay, there's three. I guess the only item that may be of note here was a paying of the first installment for having the website updated, which was $1,999. There's an invoice that now needs to be paid for the remaining $2,000 for that particular effort that will move into the fourth quarter. But if you want, you can go up to the checks there. Now, I will note that the Wex purchase media was a debit purchase as opposed to a check being written. But I guess beyond that, I'll take any questions that you have. Well, then, hearing no questions from the commissioners, do I need to open it up for questions from the community, Chair?
No, we just vote on it.
Okay. Then I move that we adopt the 3 quarterly reports. We've already voted for the first and second, but the 3 quarterly reports, and that we have those 3 reports as part of the meeting minutes for tonight's meeting, because we need to send that to the ANC office. So if, Ryan, you can include them in the meeting minutes, I would appreciate it. And I'll leave my motion at that.
Pardon, include the report itself in the minutes?
Please include the 3 reports in the minutes.
As in just quarterly report 1, quarterly report 2, quarterly report 3.
Right.
You just identify which quarter.
Exactly.
And I second your motion. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstained? And the motion passes. Thank you, Commissioner Baer. The next item on the agenda is commissioner updates and announcement. And I will just go in order. 3-1. Ryan.
Hello. So today is my last day as commissioner. Tomorrow's my effective resignation. It's been a pleasure serving everyone in 3-1 and broader. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see who the next commissioner will be that occupies 3-1, and wish them the best.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Terry Hewitt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The only update I have for housing is we are going to meet August 15th, and I will get that invite out, if not tonight, tomorrow. Oh, and this is for the Housing Committee.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioner. Commissioner Mitch Baer.
I have no additional items to mention at this point.
Commissioner James Tenderick.
I have no updates.
Oh, Commissioner Courtney Carlson, sorry, I was on mute.
Hi, my update, actually, I love to update about our commercial strip between Nebraska and Fessenden. I don't know if anyone has been along this strip recently, but Rosemary Bistro has really done an amazing job of investing in his streetery. He cleaned the top, painted it, installed plexiglass on the side. It really opens up that side of the avenue while still allowing his business to have a lot of extra outdoor seating in the summer months. So sort of like a kudos to him. And I think it's a great addition to how that streetscape looks on that side of the street. And I hope also in other business news, I hope people have tried Honeybee, which is the new ice cream place. I think Gloria talked about it last time, but I will say I had a transcendent milk and honey ice cream flavor, and everybody should try it. It's amazing. Happy summer.
Claudette, I do have one addendum to add to my update, if I could.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Carlson. And yes, Commissioner Hewitt.
Thank you. And actually, it's two addendums. One, we met with the chair of the Streets and Sidewalks Committee this week, as well as Ward 3 representative from DDOT to talk about public safety issues, specifically 31st Street that intersects with Albemarle or runs between Albemarle and Yuma. Because of the heavy traffic in that area, they're sorely lacking a sidewalk. And so that was quite productive. And there'll be more information forthcoming with an update to that street. Also for Albemarle, DDOT will install a crosswalk. We don't have a date just yet, but that is definitely coming, which will help between the 31st and 32nd block of Albemarle in that area. More details will be forthcoming. I'm certain it will take several weeks, if not a few months, before you get more details. And I also attended the MPD Community Advisory Commission. I've been a member for a while, and they provided food to the 2nd District MPD, all 2nd District. Also invited other police systems outside of the 2nd District to join, which included the Secret Service and the fire department as well. It was quite productive and it was great. Donated food for the MPD to enjoy lunch and food and just to appreciate them. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Commissioner Hewitt. And then an update for me, the website, so the new website, commissioners have seen what it would look like before it's posted. I give like another week. Commissioners just need to let me know of any changes. There'll still need to be some update, maybe to the bylaws or something, because it's basically the same information that was on the previous one. But I'm just waiting. So it should take maybe another week before we actually see it go live. So thank you everyone for your patience. It's been a long and crazy experience. And you're not seeing me right now because I'm sick and trying not to cough. So thanks for bearing with me. The next item on our agenda is committee reports. I will start with Streets and Sidewalk.
Great. Thank you, Chair David, and I hope you feel better. And thank you, Commissioner Hewitt, for raising us. As she mentioned, the first thing was the walk that we did with DDOT to look at the intersection, the block of 35th Street, not 31st, but 35th, which is on the behind the Bread First Burger King area. And that was, I believe, very productive. It led into a conversation that we discussed on our Streets and Sidewalks Committee meeting, which was a week ago today, really highlighting the need for some comprehensive traffic calming analysis of both Forest Hills and Wakefield, North Cleveland Park. And we've shared that message with DDOT, as well as the message that they need to both come up with, which they are working on, additional prioritization for where there are sidewalk gaps and pedestrian infrastructure problems, particularly ones that are not, kind of bleeding edge safety problems, but are the kinds of things that keep people from using their streets well. 35th Street's a great example of that. It's not a major traffic infrastructure, but when people do come around that corner coming down from the UDC side, it means that people are unsafe and there's no sidewalk there. We discussed at some length the Broad Branch stormwater infrastructure improvements that DDOT and DC Water are putting in. This is the Broad Branch watershed, which is both north and south of Military Road, and our ANC is kind of the northwestern part of it, and DDOT will be installing various traffic calming infrastructure, sidewalk extensions. They're going to be removing pavement in some places, primarily with the goal of increasing the permeable surface, increasing the areas where water can infiltrate into the ground before it runs into the sewer system. But we did give them some concrete suggestions on where they could line it up better with key pedestrian safety needs, particularly along Linnaean at Davenport and Ellicott, where you have really complicated intersections. When people are zooming through, it can be dangerous. So that's a great place for them to do two things at once. So we're looking to a response back from them. Thank you, Commissioner Carlson, for pushing that forward. We are, again, Commissioner Hewitt mentioned, we're waiting for final or preliminary designs on the crosswalk at 32nd and Albemarle, as well as the speed tables that will be there, but that will be a measurable improvement in an intersection where we have a lot of people crossing, particularly as we're looking forward to the reopening of the Soapstone Trailhead entrance there. We unfortunately have no new news on the former Burger King site, potential Compass site, and the number of curb cuts and the problems that causes the pedestrian safety and pedestrian experience. As we all know, at Bread First, we have the car wash there, but we're going to continue pushing on that. Also, unfortunately, no new news on the Connecticut Avenue multimodal safety study / bike lane study, but we're keeping an eye on that as well. Finally, the topic of interim safety improvements along Broad Branch Road, which we all, I think is in Rock Creek Park, but is actually DDOT property. Folks on both sides of that line want to pull back into conversation whether DDOT can do things in the near term to create a biking and walking path into the park. As many of us know, right now, if you want to enter the park without walking in the road, you either have to go to Tilden or to Military. So that leaves a huge swath where we have no pedestrian or safe cyclist access into the park. And we believe that they can do some stuff there without major capital improvements to make that possible. So we intend to keep working on that. Thank you to Julia Stevenson, our community member, for going back and finding our old resolutions and our old work on that. So hopefully we'll be reporting on that more to you soon. We don't plan to have a formal meeting in August, although we may get together to work on the Broad Branch issue. So as always, if you are interested in joining our little committee, please drop a note in the chat, or I will put my email address in the chat and we'll happily add you to our email list. Thanks.
Can I also add, the Streets and Sidewalks Committee has been very busy. And I just want to add that I want to thank Terry so much for bringing and Paul for bringing Christian to the neighborhood, because I then took him by the arm and had him go walk some of the other spots after that meeting in 3F06. And there's a lot of areas of overgrowth that are impinging on sidewalks. One, actually this isn't in 3F06, but Brandywine right next to Forest Hills Park, behind the Adventist Church is very overgrown. There's there's several spots that I have a running list now that I'm giving to Christian, submitting to 311. So if anybody has areas where you see that there's a lot of overgrowth that's blocking the sidewalks and you want to put in a 311 request and then send me that 311 confirmation number. I'm trying to create a comprehensive list and then just make sure those things get taken care of, because I think, especially at this time of year, weeds grow faster than any of us can keep up with, including the DC government. So we want to stay on top of it and make sure the sidewalks that we have are safe for everyone to pass.
Thank you, Commissioner Carlson, for mentioning that. I know that's been discussed in the Forest Hills Connection before, but it's good for the community to know that you are required to keep the sidewalk in front of your home free of plants. I know we all love our flowers and bushes and things, but it makes it hard, particularly for seniors or folks with disabilities, to pass. It can also make it hard for people to see cars coming in and out of driveways, which is a safety issue. So please make that effort to keep your plants on the dirt and not on the concrete.
Thank you, Streets and Sidewalks. Good teamwork over there.
We're
Thank
hopping.
Up next is Parks and Watersheds Committee.
That would be me. I don't have a report on any activities that we've had during the last month. I will, though, point out that we've had some signage put in for Broad Branch, the Broad Branch Trail, and I invite people to see the excellent work that John has done on those signs. It's extraordinary. He did them for the trail on Linian, and people have been raving about the quality of those signs. And I also want to thank Courtney and Paul on Streets and Sidewalks for their efforts. I went for the walk last week and will continue to coordinate, as I've had numerous requests from my constituents and my SMD about things that they'd like to see with regard to the overall plan for the Forest Hills area. So I want to thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Baer. Next up is Schools and Universities Committee.
Hey, everyone. So we had our meeting last month. It was actually a pretty light meeting because it is the summer and schools are off for the most parts. A big part of the meeting was discussing next steps for UDC and hearing about the new president coming in, which is awesome. So we're discussing some next steps and making sure that the community is getting involved in plans for UDC for the fall. And that was sort of like our main topic area for the committee. We will not meet next month. And sorry, we're not going to meet this month. My bad. We will meet next month, but we're not going to meet this month. So if you're interested in joining the committee, please just message me here on Zoom to get more information about that. And we have a pretty dynamic group so far. The group has grown pretty in bigger numbers this year. So I'm hoping for a year of continued growth and new opportunities for us.
Thank you, Commissioner Tanderick, in Schools and Universities Committee. Commissioner Terry Hewitt with Housing and Neighborhoods Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually don't have an update because we didn't meet last month. We are meeting August 15th, bit of a summer break, and we'll regroup, and I'll have an update for you next month, ma'am.
Thank you, Commissioner Hewitt. And if you want to, the easiest way to reach any of us is just by emailing us at commissioners@anc3f.com, and that goes to all of us. So thank you. The next item on the agenda is community forum, and we've identified the regulars, and then we'll go into open forum. It's really open to anyone. I just want to identify some of the community leaders who give regular reports first. So I'll start with UDC.
Thank you, Commissioner David. Can everyone hear me? Hello?
I can't. I don't.
Yes,
see you,
yep,
though.
yeah, we can hear you. We can't see
Okay.
you though.
Sorry, well, my camera is working, but I'm kind of standing in between a lot of things. So I'm just going to stay off camera for right now. Just some quick updates. I do want to give summer enrollment numbers. So for the community college, We currently have 809 students who are registered for summer courses, and for the Van Ness campus, we have 580. So those are actually pretty good numbers for summer, because summer sessions, we have 2 summer sessions. I cannot give you the dates of each session, but I know we're in summer session 2 right now. So those are pretty good numbers. Last week, we held our quarterly Community Campus Task Force meeting. It was a very good meeting. We gave our normal updates. There was a great conversation and presentation from the archives. I know they're going to be giving a similar presentation tonight. A lot of great questions and concerns from the audience. Hopefully we answered all of those questions sufficiently for the community. But if not, we are still trying our best to answer any additional questions people may have. Let's see. I know people are wanting more updates on retail. So All Care, as everyone knows, is already open. They opened their doors on May 10th. Moms is slated to open closer to December of 2023. Doghouse, summer 2024. And then Whale Tea Lease should be starting, well, not the lease, but they should be open in summer 2024. And then Chick-fil-A and Fuddruckers are slated to open in August of 2023 when a semester starts. President Eddington will be starting his new role as president on August 1st. So we're looking forward to starting our new chapter with our 10th president for the university. And then the academic year will be starting on August 18th, I believe is the date. Excuse me, August 21st. So those are all of the updates that I have right now. If we have any questions from the community about anything.
Just 2 quick questions. Can you just, do you have like a confirmed date or time period when the next community task force meeting would be at for UDC?
I do. Let me check. It is on my last agenda. Sorry, if there's any additional questions while I'm looking that up, please let me know.
An additional question is about the former Walgreens. There's a question on an update for that.
I do not have that update right now. I can definitely come back to next month's meeting with that update, or at the next schools and universities committee meeting next month, if not August, then September. I can definitely give an update on that building, but I am not prepared to give that update at this moment.
I do also want to ask as well too about like the mom's organic market, because it's been sort of up in the air with issues and everything as well. What can like the ANC do to help sort of expedite the process? Does that involve working with like Gloria Van Ness Main Street? Like what is that looking like from the ANC? Because I know people are asking about like the moms and like when will it open. I know there's issues with like lighting and everything too, and signage as well. So I'm just trying to get a sense of like what is the hold up for moms organic markets, as well as like how can the ANC help to sort of push this, because I think it's been sort of like kind of lights out for like a while.
Right. So the issues are still the same that we've mentioned before. The signage, there's some lighting things. There has been issues with getting in materials, just because all over the country there's been an issue in getting building materials for various sites. So those have been the issues. I have let our COO and our Vice President for Real Estate and Facilities, Javier Dusan, know that the ANC is really ready to support moms. And if there was anything that they needed, I do know that they can, they do know that they can come to you all with resolutions of support if that's something that they might need. They have not come back to me to say that that is something that they need at the moment, but I will follow up with Javier and with David Franklin, our COO, to see if there is anything additional that ANC 3F can do. I do know that Gloria Garcia from Van Ness Main Street has been reaching out to them as well. So she may have an update on her end on how they have been or maybe supporting during her meeting or her presentation. But that's all I have right now. The issues have always been the same, but they do know that the ANC is there to support them.
Thank you, Juanita. Appreciate it.
Okay. And I will put the dates in the chat because I am not finding it in my emails right now and I don't want to hold up any more time.
Okay, thank you for that, for your updates.
Thank you.
I will call on now Gloria Garcia with Van Ness Main Street.
Good evening, everyone. It's so great to see everyone, and I want to thank everyone for their patience as I have been absent for the past 2 meetings due to prior family big travel plans. So thank you for your patience. I will follow up directly with what Juanita just said. One of the big issues that Van Ness Main Street has been working on with moms is the signage that they are trying to get approved. It has nothing to do with DC, but the purview of the Commission of Fine Arts due to the land lease. That is that ground that the building sits on that UDC owns is actually WMATA and DC government land and something else. And it's just it's being caught up bureaucratically, but we have not heard anything further from moms. So we're hoping that December is the date, but we continue to work with them. On a macro level in the corridor, I think Juanita touched upon all the new businesses. We continue to work with Compass Coffee to see if we can successfully bring them. Further in the lower corridor, the Days Inn is undergoing a more than $1 million renovation, both interior and facade and landscape. So shortly, we hope that we will be announcing some tours so people can, you know, see what it looks like inside. I think the community will maybe feel a little bit better about, you know, the Days Inn continuing to operate in our neighborhood. On the upper corridor, as Courtney mentioned, Commissioner Carlson, sorry. Thank you for acknowledging Rosemary's Bistro because he really has been working very hard to make that streetery look better. We also have a new tenant that has arrived, that will be arriving at the old Headliner space. I don't know if you remember the salon that's between Truist and the Italian bar. That is going to be another art gallery. So we're working with that new owner. So exciting because after that, the only vacancy on the upper quarter is Jake's, and we are reducing vacancies on the lower corridor. And more exciting news to come on the Park Van Ness Old Uptown space in the coming weeks. So we're going to have some good news there. Also on the macro level, I just want to send a plea out. Summers are always the slowest part of business for all the businesses, and this is an especially slow summer. So, you know, if you're thinking about going out and doing anything, I hope that you think of our corridor first. I know that we don't have the same variety yet, but it will change in the next 12 to 18 months. But just think about our businesses first because they are hurting right now. On our Van Ness Main Street side, obviously we have movie night tomorrow night. Thank you, UDC, for the use of the free space. We have 101 Dalmatians tomorrow night. And then the following week, we have Minion, The Rise of Gru. We had an amazing turnout for our last one. We had more than 200 people in the amphitheater. It was a beautiful sight to see. So thank you, UDC, for you know, still providing that free of charge to the community. And then the next big thing will be Artle Night on September 29th. So we have more fun and additional new activations and a very exciting partnership that I hope, you know, everyone will, you know, support. So that's it for now. And I just, you know, want to thank the community for continuing to support all the small businesses.
Thank you, Gloria, and welcome back.
Thank you.
No problem. And the next will be Councilmember Fruman's office, then it'll be Representative Oye, and then it'll be Almoker Matthew Barkley. Is
Hi,
it-
I'm Shantice. Yes, I'm
Hey.
Shantice Brown. I'm the staff assistant and scheduler for Councilmember Fruman. Our biggest update that we have next Wednesday, July 26th, we're having Workday in the Ward at Dolan Uyghur from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We'll be there all day. It will be members of our legislative team, constituent services team, and the council member himself. He'll be there from 8 until around 10:30 a.m. for coffee with your council member, and then he'll also come back in the afternoon. And we have different agencies coming by. I know that DDOT was a particular one that a lot of people want to speak with, and if I'm not mistaken, they'll be there from, give me 1 second, 3 until 5 p.m. And MPD will be there from 9:30 to 11, and the OAG office will be there 9 to 11. And as always, if you guys need anything from our office, you can reach out by phone or send us a message on our website.
And what's your phone number?
202-724-8062.
And can you put those dates in the chat as well too?
Sure,
Thank you.
no problem.
Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us tonight.
No problem.
Now we'll hear from Representative Oye. Welcome.
Thank you so much, everybody. And greetings 3F. This is your U.S. Representative Washington, D.C., Oye Owolawa, where we fight for D.C. statehood and bring resources to our us in D.C. So on statehood side, as you all know, we have bills going into Congress that are getting slapped down, but we are working hard to kind of push for D.C. statehood. I'm also working behind the scenes on some other legislation, like the access to AEDs, defibrillators, and make sure that once it passed, DC residents get adequate and equal funding compared to all the other states. Inside of this office, we also pay attention to things that affect DC residents that's impacted by statehood, including public safety. We have a very restricted criminal justice system that imprisons DC residents at a higher rate than other residents in other states. And what we see is when people are released, they have fewer opportunities to get jobs, fewer opportunities to get housing, and this office is trying to be smart on crime. So this Saturday in 2101 MLK Ave, we're having a special clinic where we're talking to returning citizens with criminal records on how to seal their records and also get jobs as well. What we see is when people have jobs, they're less likely to commit crimes or be targets of crime. We're also having an opportunity to teach them about entrepreneurship grants where we're awarding or getting people to learn about opportunities to get grants for their entrepreneurship or businesses to allow people to get their step up, but also change their own lives and hire people from their own backgrounds. So I'm going to include the information on it. It's on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at 2101 MLK Ave Southeast. And hopefully, if you guys know people who have records or know employers who provide second chance opportunities for returning citizens, please send them to my way. I'll put my link in the chat as well as my phone number as well, so you guys can reach me as well. Again, thank you for all you do to make the city a safe and fair place, and I am proud to be a representative. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Oye. Hopefully we'll get to see you again. Now we'll hear from Almoker Matthew Barkley.
Hello, everyone. It's Matthew Barclay, your Ward 3 liaison for the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services. I'll drop my information in the chat. This week, Mayor Bowser announced the new Chief of Police, Pamela A. Smith. Chief Smith knows DC, knows MPD, and knows policing, and she understands the network of law enforcement and public safety teams that work to keep Washington, DC safe. You can learn more about 2 links that I'll have dropped in the chat in a second. Also this week, this month, we are pushing our Pathways to the Middle Class initiative. So there's a progress report that I'll drop in there And then also there's plenty of opportunities for DC residents to gain employment through DC government. And you can go to moda.dc.gov/jobs and that will be in the chat. The MLS All-Star Game is Friday. And there are celebrations at the Sandlot and Anacostia. One today, which ends in 20 minutes, and then one tomorrow, 4 to 8 p.m., where Atlas Brew will do a pregame tailgate. Also, on July 11th, the Safer, Stronger DC emergency legislation vote. Well, the DC emergency legislation vote was passed by council, and Mayor Bowser wanted to, she has a quote here that I'll drop in the chat, but basically it's a thank you to the council and Commissioner or Councilmember Pinto for passing that law. Also, we have a initiative to get illegal guns off the street. So if you know of anybody that has an illegal gun, or where an illegal gun is hidden, or you know, there's a gun tip program. You can call 202-727-9099, text 504-111. I'm sorry, only 2 ones, 504-11. And you can be eligible for a cash reward of $2,500 for a tip leading to an arrest, and $10,000 for a tip leading to an arrest and conviction. So that'll be in the chat. Also, this weekend, the Mayor's Office of Clean City invites residents to bring any bulk items and use electronics to a drop-off site at no cost as part of DC's zero waste goals. And if you are a senior or have disabilities, you can contact Carmen Roberts Williams. Information will be in the chat. This will be this Saturday, July 22nd at 10 a.m. at the North Michigan Park Recreation Center, 1333 Emerson Street Northeast. That's all for me tonight. Oh, also, Mayor Bowser had the Downtown Action Plan Futuring workshop, and you can also watch that at the link that I'll have in the chat. So as always, thank you guys. And if you are in need of anything throughout the week, please let me know.
Can you give us your contact on video?
My number is 202-340-7853, and my email is matthew.barclay@dc.gov, matthew.barclay, BARCLAY @dc.gov. And I'll put this in the chat.
Thank you. Sorry. And OYA's contact is 202-390-9480. That is 202-390-9480. Are there any other updates? Going once, going twice, seeing none. Commissioner Bayer.
Yeah, I just want to note that Gloria put in the chat a very, very important update that she didn't mention during her report. There is a sandbox in the Forest Hills Park that needs sand. And I know it personally because my grandchildren have tried playing in there and there's no sand in it. There's an effort underway to raise money to get sand for that sandbox. And I would encourage the community to please step up and provide either the sand itself or provide donations so that sand can be purchased for that sandbox. Thank you.
Do you know how they can give donations?
Gloria, do you want to, are you still on?
Yeah. Yes, of course. We this morning, I'm sorry that I was remiss in remembering this because I've been working on this for at least a year. We sent out an e-blast this morning, and the link to donate is there. I can't upload the link right now. I'm sorry because I'm on my phone, but I can send it to ANC 3F. If you get our e-blast, it's in that e-blast from this morning. But we raised nearly $500 within the first 2 hours. And donations continue to come in. And I want to thank Days In because they donated 250 right off the bat. So yeah, I will try to get the link up, Mitch, before this meeting is over. It's hard with my phone, but thank you for that. Thank you for that pitch. We've been working on trying to get sand in the sandbox for at least 12 months. We did it through the winter thinking that the request would be fulfilled in the spring. And, you know, I think they put some in there, but it was embarrassing. Like it's still a dangerous sandbox for toddlers or for anybody. So.
Gloria, not to have any impact on your fundraising, which is amazing, but should we continue to be demanding this of the city?
I think so.
Requesting
I definitely
repeatedly?
think so.
Because
I
it
just
seems
don't
like
wanna
their
let it go.
responsibility and not our neighborhood's responsibility.
No, it's not. But as you may know, that Venice Main Street kind of also absorbed the Friends of the Forest Hills Playground. So we are programmatically and ethically, you know, wanting to fulfill our duty. And it just has gotten to the point where we're not getting the sand. So we are going to buy it. We're actually going to go locally to Tenleytown. We're going to go to Ace Hardware. I'm going to have them deliver it because there's no way that my Mini Cooper can, you know, drag 1,000 pounds of sand, and we're going to fill it. And, but we still need to put the pressure on DC because we shouldn't be having to spend private funds on this.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate. So thank you so much for all you do, and a reminder to everyone that Gloria and Main Streets all over the city are consistently filling gaps in what we get from the DC government. I did just find the link and posted the link.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, because I'm on my phone. I'm not on my computer. Thank you.
Hopefully it works. Let me know. Let me know when you guys all try and donate.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is an update from MPD with Lieutenant Olivier.
Good evening, everyone. Before I begin, in reference to the sand, have you checked with the community outreach here at MPD to see if they could speed the process up?
No, we have not. We have been working through Parks and Rec and through the DGS, you know, request system. And,
Okay.
But we have not reached out to MPD. So I will do that.
Okay, to the MPD, it's Miss Kaya Branch. You could just call the main office.
Oh, I know Kaya. Yes, I know Kaya. I will reach out to Kaya.
See if she can.
Thank
speed
you.
that.
Yeah. And I
Okay.
also want to say, to close that loop, Matthew Barclay, the moker, was in our corridor today, looking
Okay.
not only at the sandbox, but at another issue, which is a sidewalk issue. So, you know, we're working it at all angles, including Fruman. So, you know, but I just want to fill the sandbox. We're going to fill the sandbox.
I understand. Okay. So the information I'm going to give everyone today about ANC 3F, it comes from DC Crime Cards. I put the link in the chat. It's crime cards with a s.dc.gov. So I'm comparing a 30-day spread from June 18th to today, comparing it to last year's numbers. So I'm gonna give you the total and then I'll give you the breakdown. The total amount of crime last year in 3F was 15. This year we're up to 46. Okay, the breakdown goes as follows. Thefts, just general thefts, went from 7 last year to 21 this year. Thefts from autos went from 7 last year to 20 this year. And that's the thefts from autos mainly what we're finding is being conducted in the daylight hours with the maid services, constructions. I believe I told you guys this last time we were on, but it's driving. That's driving the thefts from autos. People that are working, they're leaving their pocketbooks and purses and stuff in the vehicles, and they're working inside, and they come back out, and their items are gone. As far as the thefts, went from 7 to 21. 15 of those were from CVS stores. CVS have a policy. They wait till the suspects have left, and then they call the police to report them. That's kind of counterproductive as far as I see it. We had theft of motor vehicles, stolen autos. It went from 1 to 5. We have people leaving their cars running and going inside, like the Uber Eats and stuff, to pick up food and come back out. Their vehicles are gone. So we're still trying to work with them on that. It's kind of hard to change that habit with the delivery guys. So the things we're doing, we're still handing out flyers. We're still doing the high visibility. I've asked the officers to increase patrols up and down the part of Connecticut Avenue and the side streets where most of the stuff is happening. I've assigned a unit to patrol these areas specifically because when they're not on a radio call, a radio run or call, and we're working on other things. I'm changing the way I do the crime plan now. I'm going to have each sergeant for that shift, because I'm not here 24/7. And basically how we did it, we give a general crime plan, but now I'm going to have them tailor it to their shift, and where we're seeing this stuff is they'll come back to me and we'll say, let's do it. So that should be forthcoming in the next 30 days or so. Other than that, that's it really. The good news is we haven't had any homicides or any carjackings, robberies, or anything like that for NC3F in a 30-day comparison. Anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Lieutenant. Are there any questions from the commissioners? Any questions from the community? Harry Garral.
Yes, I've got a question about how you gauge the level of criminal activity or nuisance activity in the neighborhood. The reason why I ask is because we have some records that have been FOIA'd from some of the apartment buildings along Connecticut Avenue, and I was just reviewing one, and it shows about 35 police calls to one building in the month of April, and then about 35 in the month of May, in just one building. And there are many such large buildings along Connecticut Avenue. I'm just wondering if you are to consider the seriousness of crime in the area. I assume that you're not just looking at the arrests made, but you're also looking at this greater activity. And how do you gauge that, and how do you view the more general situation?
Right. So the way I do it is we look at the crimes that are actually reported. Then we start going through. I start going through the reports, the call for services. Most of these call for services are for disorderly, like noise, people hanging out and stuff. Most disorderlies calls that we get for like the 35 calls for one buildings is mainly noise and stuff. People hanging out, people smoking in the hall, stuff like that. But we look at the numbers as far as reported crimes, and we do have a lot of crimes that are not reported as well. And we want to report them, not try to take matters into their own hands. But that's how I look at it. I look at the reports, and this is why I tell you that CVS alone, and the way they do it, and the pocketbooks and purses and stuff coming out of cars, and how it's happening, and looking at the time it's happening, what's being taken. I could give you the breakdown and be confident about my report.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Are there any other questions from the community? Seeing none, thank you so much, Lieutenant Olivier. We really appreciate your service. And thank you for joining us tonight, and giving us an update.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is DC Water with Emmanuel Briggs and team.
I'd like to introduce that, Chair. I want to thank DC Water this month again for coming to brief us. Couple things just to note, please. They're expanding the notification and community outreach efforts through the summer, and we will be seeing them at the farmers market there in front of UDC at some point during the next couple months, and the weekly, bi-weekly updates will continue through the summer. The other thing I'd like to ask of the community is for people to please stay out of the park that is now closed and away from the operations in the park area that are going to be commencing again shortly, as you'll see in the schedule. It's dangerous for you, it's dangerous for the workers, and it just is not a good thing to do. I'll just finally close by saying that DC Water has promised to have a fairly detailed schedule for shots 6 through 10, which they had a map on last month. Shortly, they are doing some preliminary work that needs to be finished before they can start kind of gauging when they'll be in those areas. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Emmanuel for the presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Jarrell's going to jump right into it. And thank you also, Chairperson David.
All right, good evening, commissioners and community. Just give me 1 second to pull my screen up. And we'll be moving pretty quickly through the presentation. As most of you all have seen most of the information before. These are the items that we'll cover. We'll go through the construction update. We will speak on the stakeholder engagement and give you an update on the bypass 2 setup. So currently, as you all know, our permitted construction hours are from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And that's Monday through Thursday. Our current status this week, we've been completing the installation of bypass number 2 and also performing testing. We anticipate the bypass to be fully set up by the end of this week. The following week, the week of July 24th, crews will begin CCTVing the sewer segments for shots 6 through 10. From there, crews will begin mobilizing to Site 5 to begin installing manhole protection. That's kind of the stone armoring that you've seen the photos of before that will protect those manholes. The week of July 31st, we'll continue with the CCTV operations for shots 6 through 10, and also continue the installation of manhole protection at Site 5. During the week of August 7th, 2023, DC Water and the designers, they'll internally review the CCTV footage for Sites 6 through 10. And we should also be completing stream work at Site 6 during that week. The week of August 14th, the contractor will begin ordering their lining materials and supplies to the supplies needed to conduct the CIPP operation. And also we will develop a lining sequence and a schedule. We'll be sharing that with the community as that schedule gets solidified. And we planned on beginning installation of those CIP shots the week of August 21st. And by the time we reach that point, you all would have received multiple notifications from us and updates on a solid start date. All right. as we mentioned, since the last month, we've removed the original bypass that was set up and relocated that for bypass setup 2. As I mentioned on the last slide, that bypass should be fully installed and tested by July 21st. And just to mention, the bypass system only runs during the CIPP operation, and we do routinely monitor it for any deficiencies. Stakeholder engagement, as Commissioner Bear mentioned, one of the things that we'll be doing to kind of supplement your ANC recess, we'll be out in the community more. We'll be at the farmers markets during the month of August with an information table, providing updates and also encouraging more folks to sign up for our electronic distribution list. And then we are looking to host the DC Water hosted virtual meeting in early August. Still working on nailing down a date, but we will share that with the community and commissioners to ensure proper attendance. Also, we would be hosting virtual and in-person meetings with stakeholders, specifically stakeholders along the kind of path of shots 6 through 10. So working with Park Van Ness, the Montessori School, and others in that area. And we will continue to attend the monthly ANC meetings, providing updates. As I mentioned before, the best way to get in contact with us is to email soapstone.info@dcwater.com. And just simply add me in the subject line, and we will add you to the distribution list to receive all of the schedules and updates. And with that, I'll open up the floor for any questions.
Thank you. And I will pass this on to Commissioner Bear.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that those virtual and in-person stakeholder meetings will be for the communities that are going to be along not only the 6 through 10 shots, but also the laterals that will be going to the Park Van Ness, Park Connecticut buildings, the Lenore Lane community, the Van Ness North and East buildings, and most importantly, the Audubon Terrace lateral that will be done. We will be having those scheduled well before each of those areas are going to be impacted either by the work in the park in shots 6 through 10 or the laterals, so that we will make sure that people have the opportunity to see and talk with the DC Water people. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the community?
I had a quick question. It's Paul Harrison, and thanks, Jarrell, for these updates. I'm just curious, given that it appears that the work at the westernmost part of the site for the stream work up the hill is done, not the stream work, but the hill stabilization. Is there any possibility that you guys will be able to open the unpaved portion of Audubon Terrace? Again, thinking about Commissioner Bear's request that folks not wander into the construction site, but that section is probably the biggest, the highest demand for people just going on neighborhood walks with their dogs, etc. Is there any way that might be reopened to the public sooner than the complete finalization date of the project?
Yeah, we've been instructed by National Park Service. That's what we get a permit from. They didn't want us to open it. The reason being, once we finish the work, we're going to start planting vegetable and replanting some trees, so that they don't want those people, once you open it up, people will be, walking over it. So that's one of the reasons why.
All right, so that would only work if you ended up fencing off the rest of the park area. So, okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Arnie, any questions from commissioners? Any other questions from the community? Going once, going twice, seeing none. Thank you so much, DC Water Team. We appreciate you. See you in
Thank you.
September. Let me move you. The next item on our agenda is DC Archives project with Dr. Lopez Matthews. Hello, Dr. Matthews.
Hello, hello. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, yes, we all see you now.
Okay. So thank you all for allowing me to come back. I'm here with some of the DC Archives team, and so I want to show you an update on the current design of the building. And I just want to thank everybody for being with us. Secretary Kimberly Bassett is here. She's on camera waving at everybody. So I want to thank the secretary for coming to join us too. And she's been a great support on this project. So I will get right into it because I only have 20 minutes. So can you all see my screen? Yes.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so this is the updated plan for the building. We've made some slight changes based on feedback. So just so you know, here's for context, here is the UDC campus. The building that we are replacing with our new building is building 41, which you see toward the center of your screen. This is a slide of the pedestrian circulation, vehicle circulation. So as you mentioned before, the plan still is to have all vehicles, DC government vehicles servicing the building enter the garage through the current entryway, exit through the other entrance, removing the parking garage. We're going to keep the service entry for service to the building, and then the front entrance is here on Van Ness Street. And as you can see, it's next to the future athletic fields for UDC. Here is a landscape design of what we're hoping the site will look like once we are done, or what the plan is for the site to look like once we're done. As you can see, we've added a number of additional trees to the design from the last time I was here. Don't have an exact count for you, but we've added a number of trees, as much as we can, based on the National Archives standards for building archives, which we are adhering to. So here are some renderings of what the building should look like once it's completed. Front view along Van Ness Street, back view along Van Ness Street. Here's a view of the interior of the first floor of the building with our lobby, 300-person multi-purpose room, exhibit space for DC history-related exhibits and archival-related exhibits, UDC Archives research room, and the main research room for the Office of Public Records. On the second floor, you see there's space for UDC Archives staff, UDC processing room, our digitization lab, our electronic records processing room, paper processing, then archive storage and cool storage for media, and our secure treasure vault. And one of the things that sometimes people may not remember when they talk about this building is that it is a secure government facility with public functions. And so security of the records is one of the major functions of this building as well. On the third floor, you have the offices for the Office of Public Records, Director's Office, senior staff offices, staff cubicles, more processing areas, more archival storage, and then record center storage. One of the things that's different about this building, as I may have mentioned before, is that we're combining an archival storage, which is typical of many state archives buildings, but we're also housing a record center storage, which is unique in state archives because most state archives have their record centers stored offsite somewhere. But one of the goals of this building is to consolidate all of DC's history into one facility. On the 4th floor, it's all record center storage, and record center storage are records that are still in the legal custody of the agency, but we are preserving and storing those records in our building for safekeeping. And as you can see on the 4th floor, because it is all record center storage, there's a record center research room for DC government agency staff to do research and work with their records. So here's some more renderings of the outside of the building. Now this scene and what you're going to see are a lot of the same thing, where the trees are off in this drawing so you can see the building. But when the building is built, it will be blocked by the existing trees on the line. So this is what it'll really look like when you drive up the road. But this is what you'll see when you go past the trees. So here's another look at the front of the building. Trees off, trees on. And I actually think it looks really nice with the trees on, but you can't see the building. So here's another view of the front of the building with the trees on. Another view of what the walkway between the building and heading into Denard Plaza will look like with the trees. A view from heading toward the building or away from the building, depending on what you're doing, coming from Denard Plaza. This is the view coming from the metro as you walk onto UDC's campus. You'll see the building kind of straight ahead in front of you. Another kind of view from Denard Plaza. This is a view from the side of the building. And this is a view from the future sports field. And this is the loading dock that you see with the mature trees in front of the building. And so these are the updates to the design, just to kind of provide some information to you. We have done public engagement around this project. This project is a 20-year-long project, but it really took, it really got going starting in 2014 with public interest forums, people explaining what they wanted to see in a DC Archives building. It progressed through 2015 into 2016, 17, 18. Then it was a brief pause. The project restarted in the summer of 2022, and we released a programming report, which showed all of the studies. This is where it came out that we could not reuse Building 41 because it would collapse under the weight of the records. And so we really needed to build a new purpose-built archives. And so that report was released to the public in August. We had a discussion in September. We had public comments open until the end of September into October. We updated the program report in response to the public comments we received in November. Then we shared the concept design, which we're technically still in that phase of concept design in February 2023. We've been accepting comments on our website. We've responded to some comments that we've received thus far. We've updated the design based on the comments that we've received. We of course presented here at the ANC in April. And I have been presenting the design to other groups in between this, but they're public engagement. We're going to have another public design meeting later on this summer to discuss this design in a little more detail. And then we plan on coming back to you in September. And then we have our zoning hearing preliminarily in September as well. And so it's just a bit on the racial equity analysis that we are going to respond to, and we're going to be cognizant of. And so I'm going to stop here. And I know that the UDC zoning, I forgot what it's called, is tied into our project.
Yes,
so
hi.
If we could just slide into that and just kind of bring this all together, would you all mind that?
Absolutely.
I saw you shaking your head. Yes, thank you.
So good evening. My name is Meredith Moldenhauer, Land Use Counsel from Cozen O'Connor, and I'm here to just briefly kind of follow up on Dr. Matthews' statements regarding the DC archives. As part and parcel of this project, we have filed a further processing and amendment to the UDC campus master plan. The modification to the campus plan just simply kind of narrows in. We had identified 3 different potential uses for the site, and so it narrows in and identifies specifically that we will be proposing the DC archives for this specific location. And it also identifies that we propose to raise the existing structure, and then it shows and identifies all the details of the architecture and the building and how it is consistent with the overall master campus plan. And so we're moving forward with that application. As the commissioners know, that's been submitted. We have a hearing date in September. And we are excited as we believe this is a great synergy between the overall goals of the university identified in the master campus plan and the goals of the district in obtaining this DC archives project. And we're here tonight. Otherwise, I'll just indicate that the building and the structure is fully compliant to the zoning standards and development standards for the site, and is actually slightly reducing the overall FAR and also reducing the parking. So at the end of the day, it is consistent with the goals of the master campus plan. But I'll open it up for any questions from the commissioners and the individuals of the public.
Thank you for that. Questions from the commissioners, and then I'll go to the public.
Madam Chair and Ms. Lodenhauer and Dr. Matthews, this is Commissioner Hewitt. I do have a statement and a question. The rendering you provide is absolutely beautiful. It's lovely, and as many might know, the architect of UDC's current buildings, minus the student housing, was in part of the DC jail. And it is nice to see this just amazing architecture, just light and warmth, and to have the trees is just a wonderful contrast to what is currently there. The question I would have is, because this is the archives, the National Archives requirements, as well as DC archives, is there a possibility to work with UDC, engage in conversation to bring back the MLIS program, the Master's Library Information Science, being that this is archive? At one point, some decades ago, UDC was one of the few schools that offered the MLIS program. Now only Catholic University and University of Maryland are the only 2 in our area that offer that. That includes Maryland, Virginia, and DC, of course. So I'm just wondering if that's a possibility.
I think it's a great question. Actually, that was brought up the other night to President Mason for UDC, and he indicated that, as I think everyone's aware, President Mason is ending his term, and he was excited to say that he looks forward to the new president taking on the endeavors of looking into that.
That's wonderful news. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan Ms. Brunelli.
So, thank you. This is just, again, somewhat of a pet interest of mine, and I do believe Commissioner Terry Hewitt and I may differ in terms of the aesthetic value of the library, but it is still on its own a pretty unique instance of brutalist architecture within the district. The UDC in general aesthetic plan appears to mostly be brutalist. And I was just wondering whether the archives could at minimum just document the architectural plans of the building itself, and just its overall design through photography of interior and exterior. Again, just my own little pet request. And also I would endeavor archives and all those involved to respond to much of the public comment that we will receive most likely after commissioner requests and questions. Thank you.
Any responses?
Scott,
So
can you
Ryan, you
respond to
made
that?
that
or-
comment before. I did share that with Javier Ducen, that
Right.
we could really document building 41 and
I
photograph.
was also gonna
maintain.
mention, my name is Scott Texera. I'm one of the architects, and I think, Ryan, that the university has a pretty impressive archival collection of their own, chronicling their own institution's history. A lot, the Bryant brothers' original drawings are on file at the university. The university was so kind to make that information available to us to help us with designing our building. So I know a lot of that original documentation exists within the university. Just in my own research, Googling around, I've found a lot of history that's already recorded the development of the campus and the role that the Bryant brothers had in designing it, and with Cleveland Denard's leadership. And so that history, I think, already is well documented. And I'm actually not quite sure what value might be added by recording the building's current condition, which is rather disappointing because it has suffered so much deferred maintenance. The building is not really in its best form in its current state. And but those are my initial thoughts. I mean, I think a lot of the types of information that you're interested in may actually already exist. And like Dr. Matthews has indicated, I think Mr. Desan with the university's facilities group might have access to better information about the records they do have from the original architects. Yeah.
Fair enough. Thank you. I'll let the other commissioners have a chance to comment.
Commissioner Tenderet.
Thank you. Two questions. I want to ask about, like, so assuming that all of this is passed and like the building will be constructed, talk to me about, like, what does like construction look like and how will it impact the community? Like how will it impact like the streets and the community, like students itself? Like, will they be able to get on campus? Will it look like for them? And then my other question quickly is, I know that on the slide about like public engagement, there was mention of like a summer public community meeting. Can you talk more about like what that meeting will look like? And like how will it give the people in the community a chance to sort of speak up about like questions or comments or concerns about the whole project?
So let me just address your first question regarding construction. We're not at that phase yet. Obviously, we're first kind of through this entitlement phase of going through the campus master plan. The district and the department, the archives department is very committed to working with the university to ensure that obviously the least amount of impact is there. But as we continue on, the university does have, and I think Juanita, who is part of their communications division, comes to meetings with the ANC every month. We're committed to continue to engage with the ANC kind of as we get to that stage of construction to ensure that the ANC understands kind of how that will be impacted. And we obviously will work to reduce any impact as much as possible. To your second question, I think that maybe somebody else on our team may be better addressed to kind of address that. Maybe you want to repeat that second question so that people can remember what it was.
Yeah, of course. So in the presentation that Lopez had, there was a slide about like a list of like community engagements within the area. And there was one about coming up in the summer. So I want to hear more about like what is that meeting going to be about?
So that meeting is going to talk about the use of the building. So we're going to talk about the public spaces and the archival workspaces inside of the building. That's what that meeting is going to focus on, kind of going through the design.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I've got a comment. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Daphne Humphrey. I'm a UDC student, and I was very not happy with what I had heard about the building, because I had thought that maybe us being students, we would have a little bit more input about what was going on. And we did not get that much input. Now, if the input was given, it was given before I came in the year 2020, which means that most of the students at the time that it was first brought out, most of them have already graduated and really not concerned about what's going on right now. So what really problem is, what gets me is that we as students are gonna be losing a lot of the beautification and stuff that the campus right now is going through, because we have put all kind of, we got different UDC gardens coming. We at UDC Garden, and they're looking good, and they're coming up. Then we have the other crew, the landscaping crew that comes in and works to try to keep some the gardens and stuff up. So the campus right now is looking very good. The thing about this is I can believe that the DC Archives would be a good building or whatever, but I'm still concerned about what other issues can we get through as students to try to get everything right, because we were really was looking more for something that where we could have housing on campus, or maybe we could have something like a cafeteria or something other, because a lot of students sometimes have very long commutes to come. And then a lot of times some that come on transportation come on the train. And then, as you know, and I know, the train breaks down sometime, and the signals and stuff messed up. Then when we get ready to go into class and stuff, we're late. And so we get deducted for that. So I was trying to, understand about why come it's just something that on campus that we could really have to try to make up for all these things that we're going through right now, because it's going to, the DC Archive building looks good, but is it going to be able to keep where everything for the student to keep the stuff going or have a student life going on?
Thank you for your
Thank
question.
you so much for that question. And so let me just address it in multiple parts. One, the university has continued to engage the students and the faculty as it continues down this further processing. The students and faculty were engaged in multiple ways. And that did include identifying this site specifically for the DC Archives. Identifying this site for the DC Archives has always been part of the potential long-term plan for the university. And it does allow for the university's continued focus to identify student housing. This building was a location that, the university did not have the funds to identify for student housing. The ability to have the DC Archives on site, they believe, is an asset to the students and to its long-term goals. The design, we think, is in keeping with the desire to see more green space on campus and also create a pedestrian access for the university for the connection. And so the university continues to focus on all of its goals, and we think that this will be an asset for the students as well as
this, I know this will be an asset, but what kind of involvement will the students have with this project?
She want to be involved.
So right now we're talking more about the zoning and the structural element of it. I do know that the university is working intensively with Dr. Matthews to coordinate synergies, and there will be plenty of synergies. I think that would be for a conversation at a later date in regards to the operation and the joint connections.
I see that Tracy has her hands up.
Hi, good evening. My name is Tracy Crump. I'm a PhD student at UDC and also the president of the UDC Garden Club. So I have several questions. First of all, you stated that the students were engaged. I've been a student there for 3 years, as well as the president of the Garden Club for 2 years. And until some fellow members of the Garden Club told me about this project, I had absolutely no idea that it was going on. I talked with several people in the cohorts that are also PhD students who had no idea this was going on. So I have a multi-pronged question. My first question is, how were the students engaged? How will the students continue to be engaged? And what type of environmental impacts will result in tearing down the building? I know it was an asbestos issue is why you're tearing it down, but the gardens around the school not only produce food for the pantry, but also we donate to various food pantries. We grow hundreds of pounds of food every single year. We provide to the on-campus pantry because food insecurity is a real thing at UDC, being that we're an urban university. So my question is, when you take all of those things away, how will you substitute for what you're taking away with this project? Thank you.
I don't know the specific numbers, but at the end of the day, it's not a question of taking away. It's a question of pausing during the course of construction and then recreating green space and new gardens. So at the end of the day, our goal is that it's really not going to be, there'll be a substantial similar amount of green space and gardens that exist today. And so our intent is no matter what the university needed to do here, whether it was a renovation of the structure or anything else that might have impacted the gardens temporarily. And so we think that obviously the temporary impact for the overall goal of the city for needing a DC archives facility, as well as the benefits to the city and the university and the student population in general, are all something that can be accomplished here. And we obviously look forward to working with the Garden Club to understand kind of, what questions they may have and outlining that in more detail.
Thank you for that
We
answer.
also do include the gardens in the design. If you see the landscape design.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that we're showing currently two areas for new urban gardens.
Yeah,
there's
right
an area,
here. And toward the top left and towards the bottom right of the screen.
Awesome. So my other question was, how was the students engaged and what student population was engaged? Because I spoke with several students and who had no idea this was going on. I'm just curious.
Again, they were engaged during the overall master campus plan, which did identify this site as a location for the DC archives. Part of the master campus plan identified this as a use for the site that included surveys, that included emails. There was a task force and multiple other aspects.
Thank you.
Can someone read comments in the session, in the chat? I'm sorry.
There are a lot of comments about housing, housing on campus, whether that was, there seems to be a real need. I mean, and everyone who regularly attends this meeting will know there's a huge need in this segment of the city for more affordable housing. We talk about it almost every time we're here, was that, and certainly the students at UDC, as Daphne mentioned, so well, travel far to get to their classes. Was that discussed? That's one of the comments.
So at the end of the day, housing is still a priority for the university, and there are multiple locations that were identified in the university campus master plan for housing. This was one of them, but the intent was never to build multiple locations, but rather identify multiple options that would end up being a final location. It was determined that this was not a viable option for housing at this location. However, this was a great location for the DC archives. It is still a goal of the university to move forward with a housing project on the campus, and the ability for these two to move forward, I would say not simultaneously, but with the same intent and vigor and focus. One does not detract from the other. The university obviously needs funding from the district in order to move forward with housing. It continues to pursue that goal. And so we don't see one being in place of the other, but rather both being great assets to the city and to the university and to the community.
Could I add one piece? The students, especially who are online, my name's Commissioner Hewitt. I actually was a student at UDC 2010 to 2015. My son was also a student UDC for 3 years, and also lived on campus. He lived on campus. So completely understand your need for housing, can understand your concern, can absolutely understand, especially through my son's eyes and his dorm mates. One dorm mate who lived in Southeast DC would go home to see his family. And he talked about that commute for his friend who might stay overnight and then come back to class Monday morning or Tuesday morning, depending on the week. So we understand there's definitely a need. And I think there's a need for a bigger conversation. It may not be at this time, but there's definitely a need for it. And I speak out now because I want you to understand I've been in your shoes, both as a parent to a student and as a student on campus. I know that UDC has worked very hard, and I will go back. When I started at UDC, housing, off-campus housing was in Maryland. Maybe some of you know that historically. And UDC had shuttle buses, and eventually they stopped that because they really wanted to bring the students, they wanted to bring the student housing to the campus. So it has always been an ongoing issue. I would also say when I worked at UDC, I worked at one of the vice president's offices for student admissions. So I was part of a lot of those internal conversations. So it was a true desire to ensure that students could be at one with the campus. And I think that with this transition, with the new president coming in, this would be an excellent time to put together your thoughts and your ideas and some sort of a presentation, because I mean, you're right. But I think that it needs to start administratively. It is, as I said, I've known for years, and UDC is very much part of my heart. My mother went to a form of UDC DC Teachers College. So it's very much part of our family. But yeah, the housing issue is real. And I think that needs for a bigger conversation. Thank you.
There's a question in the chat as to who can the UDC Garden Group contact.
I know that there are UDC representatives who are on the call right now. Maybe they could speak to that.
Yeah, I've been looking for them. Dr. Matthews, I'm wondering is he still on? I can't find his name.
He's on. He's just turned on his camera.
Good afternoon. Good evening.
Oh, here he is.
This is Javier Dusan, Vice President of Facilities and Real Estate at UDC. So all communications should be channeled through Juanita Gray, Ms. Gray. I think that's the best way to manage all inquiries about all the topics that are being raised in these meetings. I'm offering myself as well as a point of contact, and I'll put my email in the chat.
Thank you, Javier. And I see a question from, is it Amy? Amy has a question.
Yes, this is Amy Shislam. I just wanted to speak as somebody who lives in an apartment close to UDC, how important the UDC Garden has been to the families here at the Connecticut House. I have personally taken children who have walked over on Saturday mornings to the garden. They get a chance to put their hands in the earth and pull out pumpkins and celebrate it. And the families here have also benefited from the produce that goes to the food pantry. I see that Judith Ingram is on the call. That food pantry is very important to this Ward 3 community. And I'm very concerned about the impact of this, taking into account how the UDC Garden Center serves the community as well as the students. I really enjoy going over there on Saturdays and talking to UDC students and taking kids from the Connecticut House there. So I think there should be value taken into account about how important that garden center is to families and providing produce to the food pantry. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. I think we will continue to look at this and analyze it and get back to the ANC as we come back next month.
There's a question in the chat that I don't think was addressed. May I read it? I'm just going to go.
Oh, yes, yes, please. No, please read questions in the chat, please. Thank you.
So we have a question. Approximately how many students were engaged through the survey process and on the overall general engagement process? If you have those statistics, if you don't have them immediately available, I'm sure the community would appreciate an update, at least to the commissioners.
I don't have those readily available, but when we get them and pull them from our records, we will send them to the commissioners and make sure you can get that out to the community.
Thank you.
You mentioned wanting to be at our September meeting. What is that update going to look like? What do you foresee for that?
So for that update, I see answering some of these questions. The building, I don't think we've really heard many questions about the building. We would obviously be able to engage and follow up with the ANC. We do have a zoning commission hearing for September, and so we would be excited to hopefully address the questions we've heard tonight, and then ask for your support for the further processing and amendment for the September Zoning Commission hearing.
Thank you. I will call on Teddy, Lena, then Mary Beth Tinker.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Teddy Mize. I am an alumni of UDC, and I'm concerned about the DC Archives building going there. So maybe I missed it. I'm not sure if there was a plan for parking. Maybe I missed it. Maybe I was not paying attention to that aspect. But the community benefits a lot from the garden. The children benefits a lot. There are the garden produces a lot for the community, for the city. Let's put it as that. And I'm very concerned about that. Maybe no one is, we already know this plan is going to go forward no matter what we say, no matter what we do. It is already taken place no matter what is going on. Just not the DC Archives building. Yes, we are focused on that. But what is the city doing with all of the buildings that are going up? What is they doing for the city with children who is not benefiting from a farm in their area, who's not benefiting from produce in their area? That should be a concern from the mayor, Mr. Lopez Matthews. That should be a concern for you all as city leaders. All of these buildings that are being constructed, where is the farms? Where are the greenhouse farms above the buildings that the children need? That is very important. Not just this one here at UDC, but I'm saying for all 7 wards, something needs to be done. Thank you all.
any responses. I mean, they
Um,
won't be able to speak to all 7 wards, but can definitely speak to
8.
the location here, or all 8, sorry.
Excuse me, all 8
Sorry.
wards, excuse me. But
Okay.
yes, I understand what it is. It's just about UDC Building 41. But excuse me, yes, all 8 wards. But what I'm saying is something has to be done, just not with this building. I'm speaking overall for the entire city. We're focused on this, yes, and it's very important to me because I go up to UDC and I partake with the farm on Saturdays or sometime on a Friday evening. But it's important. Everyone talks, but no one gives action.
Response, please. Thank you.
I will say that we have included the farms in the plan. The plan isn't to get rid of the garden. It was never a part of the plan to get rid of the gardens. We've included them in our designs. And as Meredith said, we are going to take special care to preserve them and ensure that they are preserved and that they are accessible. Now, I can't speak to how they'll be accessible during construction, but we are committed to preserving them and making sure that they are still a part of the UDC campus after this project is completed.
And just let me add from the designer's perspective, I mean, we were asked to find places to accommodate garden space in our design, and we did that. As Meredith had alluded, maybe the metrics are off. Maybe the amount of garden space that we're showing doesn't quite match the amount that you guys already have. So there's room for conversation there. We can find out, but then I think the conversation needs to be involved, I think, with Dr. Matthews development partners at UDC because I think this relationship of the gardens to the garden and the garden club to the university, like the speaker had said, it's much larger than just this one particular project. And so I don't know what other land areas that are outside the purview of our project might be available for bolstering the presence of the garden club on the campus. The other conversation I can see happening with UDC would be what measures might be taken to provide temporary gardens during construction, right? Because the reality is that even the gardens that we show in our design won't be available to the garden club until our project is completed. So I think there's a basic acknowledgement there that during the construction period, there will be a loss of 1 or maybe 2 growing seasons. And I can understand how significant that is to the people that are so intimately involved in the gardening program. So maybe there's an opportunity for maybe on the ball fields, which were used for other temporary purposes, to set up an area where the gardens can be placed for to bridge that gap. I don't know. I mean, so
I think at the end of the day, we're going to look into this.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think we'll look into it, and we'll be happy to get back to the community on that point.
Yeah, thank you, Meredith.
Thank you. We're now going to hear from Lena, Mary, Kai, and then we'll move on with the next item on our agenda. Lena? Are you on mute? All right, let's go to.
Can you hear? Hold on.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. My name is Lena Browder, and I live across the street from the UDC campus, and I'm a member of the garden of UDC Garden. My son is 9, and he started eating tomatoes this season. And he never had, tried tomatoes. And the reason why he tried them is because, he grew them. And so, and the community impact of the urban gardening project that, Tracy and Mary Beth started, and Naomi and, Daphne, is just much, the impact is much broader. And, it is vitally important for, you know, for the garden to continue to prosper and develop. And we just want to make sure that, you know, this is preserved. For two, there is a lot of work that goes into developing those, you know, plots of land, and, you know, they were not in set up for agricultural use. And, you know, it's the community and volunteers' effort that, you know, beautified this area and allowed to produce food, you know, not only for my son who just nibbles, but also for the pantry. And so this is vitally important for us as a community. And I want to make sure that, you know, we have a voice, you know, we have a person who we can talk to, and our voice is heard. Thank you.
Under a whitewater raft that was suspended.
Thank you. Have I got a response?
Javier Dusan said that you could be in contact with him regarding, he put his email in the chat. If you scroll up a little, it's Javier Dusan at udc.edu.
Yep. And Secretary Bassett mentioned that you can check out dprveggies.splash-that.com for a list of the DPR communal farms. But Javier is available, and that's JAVIER.D as in David USSAN at udc.edu. Definitely contact him to continue that conversation about the garden and UDC. He's your contact for that. Mary Beth.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad to see some community engagement around this issue, which has not taken place up until this point. And I testified 2 years ago to the Zoning Commission about the UDC master plan for the campus. There were only 2 members testifying, 2 community members, me and the ANC at that time. The Zoning Commission approved the campus plan on the condition that I be included in a task force, or that the garden club be included in plans going forward. And also the ANC was to be listened to and engaged with actively. Neither of those conditions have been met. So the original master plan, which did not include demolition of the building, the conditions for that master plan have not been met. And now the city has the audacity to move ahead with a plan to demolish the building in a new plan when they haven't even met the original conditions of the old plan, which had 3 options for Building 41: housing for students, academic space, or DC archives. So let me just get that straight, that there is going to be a hearing with the DC Zoning Commission September 21st. But the conditions for the master plan have not been met. And number 2, I am a master gardener and also a public health nurse. The demolition of the building will have huge health effects for the students, faculty, anyone going anywhere near that campus. The dust, the debris, the toxins. I know that toxins are first thing to be removed, and it will destroy, first of all, the organic gardens. Mr. Texera, I appreciate your comments, but it would have been nice to have worked with all of us as you were all supposed to have in the first place. And maybe we could have ironed out some of these problems. There's also a very active School of Architecture on the campus, and this is a research campus. The architecture school was not involved. The students do not know anything about this. They are members of our garden club also. They're surprised as anything, as is some of the top faculty there by plans. The same with the engineering students, many of whom are also members of our garden club. They're asking why they weren't involved in deciding the strength of the building that is now considered suddenly, since the original master plan, it's not strong enough. Even though it was considered strong enough, and it's right in the master plan 2 years ago, that all buildings are sound, except for the performing arts building. Oh, now all of a sudden, Building 41 is not sound enough, although it has been a library full of books but now it's not strong enough to hold the very heavy archives. So I just feel that the way that this whole project has proceeded has been disrespectful to the community, to the students, and it seems that the city is trying to push this down UDC's throat, and they don't even necessarily, feel so good about it. A lot of the UDC people who are involved as well. So those are the problems with the project right now.
Few minutes, Tinker, let me just kind of try to address some of those comments. One, the zoning commission approved a master campus plan that did identify this site for a DC archives location. The proposal here is consistent with that campus master plan, as we are moving forward with one of the 3 approved uses. The issues regarding construction debris are not germane for the zoning commission application. Those are issues that the district, as the user, as well as the university, take very seriously and will continue to work with and engage with the community as they move forward with the construction. Any issues in regards to engagement with individuals and the stability of the building. I think we did address this issue at a university meeting the other night, but I just want to make sure that everybody here understands that the university campus master plan identified the buildings from an overall structural analysis. Separate and apart, separate architects had been engaged with the analysis for the DC archives. Mr. Texera can explain that the structural load of the entire DC archives collection is much different than the structural load of the books that are currently located there. And in order to identify those and to manage that, demolition is necessary. And that includes many years over, what is it? I think it's over 3 or 5 years of analysis of other DC buildings in order to locate this, and in order to protect and preserve the important archives that we have in the district. And so, we are committed to continue to address the questions that we've heard repeatedly tonight about the, gardens, and to discuss that over the course of the next 2 months. We have, luckily we're in July, we don't come back to the ANC until September, and we're committed to continue to address those and hopefully come back to the ANC with some more specific answers on those points. Thank you very much.
And Kai.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Kai Hu. I am the current volunteer, one of the volunteer of UDC Garden Club. I just learned about the new construction project on campus. After I seen the presentation of today, I noticed that the new building's function is all about the archive, nothing about the students' learning space. And, I'm wondering whether the new construction project will contribute to the student life on the campus, because the location of this new building, the location of this building is the focal point of the campus. After the completion of the new building for the archives, but there is no relationship, there's no connection between the new buildings to the students' life and the campus life. I don't know why this happened. I couldn't understand. So I'm wondering who can answer my question.
So in terms of the DC archives being on the campus and involving students, there will be opportunities for students to conduct research in the building, work with faculty, to do research projects. We already have identified opportunities for UDC students to work in the building with the collections to gain archival experience. As I mentioned, President Mason mentioned, UDC will be looking into developing curricula to work directly with the archives. The UDC University Archives will have space in the building, as well as the Felix Grant Jazz Archives will have space in the building as well. And so it will be an opportunity for students to learn, for students to do research, as you have archives on university campuses around the country. I just left Howard University, where we have a major research center on campus, and students come in all the time and they make use of the Moreland Spingarn Research Center, because it is a world-class research facility, which is what we are building on UDC's campus, and it will bring those opportunities to UDC students. Most of the people of color who are in the archival world come from Howard because they have the experience to work at the Moreland Spingarn Research Center. And that's something that we hope that UDC students can experience, the idea of working in a world-class archive, so they themselves can also be involved in that community. Our lead records manager is a UDC graduate. And so, there are opportunities for the students to engage with the building. And that is, of course, part of our plan. That's one of the synergies that we identified when the idea was first brought to bring the building to UDC's campus, was the synergies that it could bring to the students of UDC.
How many students? Can you hear me? How many students did you talk with during this design process?
Well, that is a UDC question to answer. I don't particularly have the answer to that question, but I'm sure the UDC team can share that with you. I believe Ms. Moldenhauer said that they were going to compile their numbers and bring them back to you in September.
And I just have to add that at the Board of Directors meeting of UDC that we attended last month, the archives projected that 4 to 5 people per day would be using the new archives building. Total of 4 to 5 people per day. That we would be demolishing this and building a whole bit for the use of 4 to 5 people per day. So I don't know what is, projected, but that's what they were thinking at the time last month. And I'm sure that's in the minutes of the meeting.
I'll have to look at those because I'm not sure who would say 4 to 5 people per day.
Yeah, we're gonna have to update those projections and report back in September with updated projections. 4 to 5, I think, is like what Lopez was currently getting at Naylor Court during COVID.
That's because we don't have space to bring anybody. We limit who can come into the building because we only have 3 spaces in the research room right now. So
another question.
I'm sorry. We're going to have to follow up in September, and it's almost 9:03, and I scheduled for all this to end at 9:03. We spent about an hour right now. You do have contacts for UDC, because a lot of questions you actually need to go to UDC to respond, and Javier is your person. And he is, again, I'll just put his email in the chat again.
But maybe we can make sure that that a representative from each of these parts of the project would be available in September.
Yes, so everyone looks like they're Dr. Matthews, Meredith, you all said you'd be here in September if we brought you back.
And we're all working collaboratively together. So if you email Mr. Dusan, we'll all be engaging together, and we look forward to following up with everybody. And thank you for your time this evening.
Yeah, and that's Javier Dusan, and he's the point person for everyone, not Dr. Matthews or Meredith. Sorry, I don't want to butcher your last name, or Scott. But thank you. But it's Javier is your contact person, and that's javier.dusan@udc.edu. Thank you, everyone, and I will see you in September. Have a wonderful summer. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for your questions. Moving on to the next item on the agenda are, so we've got two items that we are planning to vote on. One is the grant application for Undesign the Red Line, and then another is a permit. So we'll start with the grant application.
And I think we may have a rep. So I know I saw Patty on the call, and I think Barbara was on the call as well too.
Yes, Patty and I and Patty Jensen and Bill Jensen are here.
Let me
Awesome. Would you want me to share my screen, Barbara, to show the presentation?
Well, it's up to you, James. What do you think? I mean, we saw we did the presentation at the June 20th meeting of the commission. There is an additional page in the PowerPoint that I sent you that shows the cost breakdown, which you had asked about. And we have a little bit more information about how the various ANCs, because we're applying to grants to all the ANCs in Ward 3. We have a little bit more information about what that money is actually, what the ANC grant would actually be used for. If you want to put it up and show the last page, we could do that.
I think if you can just show like the whole thing, but just maybe like 5-10 minutes on it if possible. But I think your last 2 points definitely bring up and talk about it for sure as well. And I over here too.
Okay.
You guys had a technical issue last time, so we actually didn't see the presentation during our meeting.
That's right. We did have a technical issue. I had a technical issue. Thank you. So thank you, commissioners. Thank you, James. Thank you, Chair David. For those of you who weren't here, or I am Barbara Kraft. I live on Upton Street, right on the border of ANC 3F. James is my single member district representative, my commissioner. I am part of a planning team that's led by St. Columba's Episcopal Church over on Albemarle Street. And we are working together to bring this Undesign the Red Line exhibit to Upper Northwest, probably sometime in early 2024. We're now looking, we thought early, when I spoke with you in June, I was looking at talking about February 2024. We're now looking at probably April 2024, which is kind of a good coincidence because that's National Housing Month. Undesign, Patty, you can go to the next slide, thanks, is a traveling exhibit that tells the story of how federal, state, and local policy around the practice of redlining discusses those policies and talks about how redlining came to be. And it focuses then, the exhibit focuses on exploring the particular effects of those policies on how various communities developed and how racial inequities are sort of baked into our neighborhoods as a result of that. We are seeking, our planning team, which includes people from St. Columba's, Temple Micah, Addis Israel Congregation, Chevy Chase Presbyterian Church, Temple Sinai. We are seeking a grant from ANC 3F to help us bring the Undesign the Red Line exhibit to Upper Northwest. We hope to have it set up, as I said, in April of 2024. Between now and then, we're going to be working to stand up a community advisory group that is people who will be the face of this exhibit once it goes up, who will help us research and select the stories of the policies and the impact of these policies in our neighborhoods here in Ward 3, and will help put them into, help the Designing the We staff put them into a format to be part of this exhibit.
And then Barbara, just let me know when I should move to the next slide.
Okay, James, are you showing the slides?
I
Great.
am, yeah.
Okay, great. You can go to the
Can you
next.
just tell me what Designing the We is? Because I saw that and I didn't.
Yeah, I thought I shared a link to that. And I'll try to put it in the chat. Designing the We is a design studio based in New York City.
Okay.
It created this Undesign the Red Line exhibit. Since it was created, and you can go on, James, to the next slide. Since it was created, it has been shown, it has been stood up in cities and communities across the country. So it's appeared in New York City, in LA, in Cleveland, South Bend, Indiana, Winston-Salem, San Antonio, Omaha, Nebraska, to name a few. And our local planning team, which is led by St. Columbus, has been working with Designing the We. And Designing the We and St. Columbus will be the contracting parties that will put this exhibit together, that the contracting parties and that contract will provide for the professional staff work from Designing the We, and the payment to the Designing the We for the exhibit. And I'll explain a little bit more later about the money. So our audience for this is primarily residents of Ward 3, including residents in ANC 3F. What's really cool about this exhibit, we think, is that it has this educational power, this educational component that's going to support storytelling, stories that we bring to the Designing the We professionals and to our community advisory group. It's going to support professional storytelling and community building and mobilization. So beyond explaining what redlining is, and we all kind of have a sense of that, each time this exhibit goes up in any one of the locations that I mentioned, or as it's going up in Ward 3, it's tailored to our community, and it's a product of of engagement and discussions our community has. So it's going to be research developed with people in our community, like I see Neil Flanagan on this call, and other people, educators, historians who are have the material, have the background to talk about our stories of redlining and housing segregation right here in Ward 3. It is a completely secular exhibit, I do want to say, and you can go to the next slide, James, thank you. It's secular. So even though this is the first time that in all the times that the Undesign exhibit has been put up across the country, this is the first time houses of worship, religious congregations have come together to put it on. But we are seeking funding from businesses, other nonprofit organizations, the ANCs, banks, schools, universities, organizations, entities that have a connection to Upper Northwest DC. Let me see, I think you can move on, James, to the next slide. We think that the time is, thank you, that the time is ripe for this in Ward 3. I mentioned that an earlier version of this appeared in downtown DC. I may have mentioned at the June 20th presentation, appeared in 2017, but we think putting on the exhibit in 2024 in Upper Northwest really makes a lot of sense. In the years since 2017, we've coming to grips with the murders of George Floyd and other people of color, together with the emergence of the Black Lives Matter movement, sort of have raised our consciousnesses, hopefully, around racial equity. And we think hosting the exhibit now and in early 2024 helps us to build on this shift in our consciousness. The exhibit's going to come at a time when Ward 3 itself is anticipating changes, as DC for right now, for example, is looking to redevelop Wisconsin Avenue and Connecticut Avenue. Part of the exhibit in its effectiveness in the interface with these sensitive issues is this very straightforward, fact-based approach. So what we're proposing, what the exhibit provides is a forum for people to talk about our history together and hopefully open the doors to a new kind of shared understanding and thinking together about what comes next. Do you want to go to the next slide, James? We think it'll be a terrific resource for ANC 3F residents in several ways. First, it's going to support community research into stories in our own neighborhoods, led by experts in history and storytelling. One particular aspect that's important today, this exhibit is designed to provide safe spaces for community dialogue around difficult issues of race and equity. So for example, I'm proposing for my synagogue, Temple Sinai, that the religious school, the middle school and high school at Temple Sinai, that the content of this exhibit be included in the religious school social justice curriculum, which includes redlining, but has never really included something as specific as housing segregation and redlining in Ward 3. We're especially excited about building on the existing activism of our high schools in Ward 3. Jackson Reed and some of the other schools have, we know that some of the youth groups are really excited about affordable housing, for example, and the history of housing in Ward 3. This exhibit is an opportunity to help reframe our residents' understanding of how we came to how our communities here in Ward 3 and Upper Northwest evolved toward racial and economic exclusivity. And hopefully, having laid a foundation for this kind of understanding, we will inspire residents to talk to each other about it and inspire them to act on it. We also, by the way, get to keep the exhibit, the materials that we develop, so they could be housed in a library or in the archives or in some other location, so they could be used for students and communities in the future. So James, I think you can go on to the next one. Thanks. Total project costs, I think I talked about this on June 20th, but we estimate 42.5 for sort of the basic cost, and that's what Designing the We is requiring in order to sign the contract with St. Columba's. I mentioned that we are seeking contributions from a variety of local stakeholders. We are asking for, now I'm sorry about the typographical error here, ANC 3E. We are also asking for a grant from ANC 3E. And I missed this page. I'm trying to I've been trying to piece together pages from our different ANC presentations, but we're seeking a grant of $5,000 from each of the ANCs in Ward 3, at least the ANCs that I've worked with. So that's, or that I'm familiar with. I'm not sure what's happening with ANC, the newer ANCs that I'm not familiar with, but I can share that ANC 3C commissioners voted unanimously last night to make a grant for this undesigned project. So we were, of course, thrilled about that. James, do you want to go to that? I think there's one more page that, yes, okay. So you had asked me before, and the other commission and some other commissioners had asked me exactly how the money is used specifically. And we have been talking with, members of our team have been talking with people at the office of the ANCs and with someone from Designing the We. And we are in a position to be able to say today that the community engagement part, the professionals community engagement, the research and consulting component, and the actual exhibit manufacture and installation costs, those are likely to be the areas where this grant money would be used. I mean, I can continue to keep the ANC informed as we learn more, but those are the focus now. Those are the likely areas where the grant would be used. And those are the areas that our DC's Office of ANCs seems to be comfortable with. And of course, I know you guys, the commissioners, will do your own research and communication with the OANC, but I just wanted to share with you that's what we had known so far. We've learned so far. So that's what I wanted to share with you. We really appreciate this opportunity. I'm very happy to answer questions tonight. I would imagine everybody's kind of tired, but I'm happy to answer questions tonight and questions after this meeting if you have any.
I see a question from Commissioner Hewitt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Kraft. I have a few questions. One is, I noticed that the NAACP and the United Negro College Fund are not noted in your documentation. And I wonder why that would be the case, as well as HBCUs. And I asked that question because undoing the red line, undoing the red line is understood. I was born in the early 60s. I remember the riots. I remember my mother struggling, trying to find housing, but she was single and socially that wasn't acceptable. And she was a Black woman. So I remember she struggled with that and she wasn't accepted or whatever, but it was across the line. So what I noticed in your presentation is that there isn't representation for those who actually had to endure this struggle. I see a lot of youth in your photos. And when I look at my son, myself, look at my mother, who if she were alive would be approaching 80 years of age, how I acquire housing was much easier than my mother. And my son will not have those issues. So he's in his late 20s. I'm just curious to know, who is this really for? I know it's Ward 3. I say that because if my mother were alive and going into retirement, she would not necessarily be able to afford to live in Ward 3. So I just want to know how you connect the past with the recent past and current with undoing the red line, because we can't have a conversation about undoing the red line without talking about those who truly endured having to survive a red line, even with the legislation of the Supreme Court in 1964, which still didn't make a lot of a change because it's cultural. You know, I'm just really curious how that's going to come about. I see your numbers, but I don't see a lot of meat and potatoes. I apologize, but I know what it's like to be brown and someone saying you're not good enough. I know that firsthand, and I don't see that in your literature. So
I thank you so much for that question and observations, Commissioner Hewitt. I really do, from the bottom of my heart. The education and the conversation that has to happen has to happen all over our city, all over our country. We are focusing on the conversations that need to happen here in a part of our city that has been segregated for so long. And we are talking about having conversations with people who have been, one might argue, part of perpetrating these practices, or who are completely unaware. So for example, students at Jackson Reed, students in the religious school at my synagogue or at other religious institutions, they know about redlining, they study it, they know about housing segregation, they know about Martin Luther King Jr. and his heroic efforts, but do they know what happened actually here at the Chevy Chase Library and Community Center, where there is a covenant that was imposed in 1909. We talked about it a little bit when we met a couple of weeks ago. There is a covenant that was imposed there in 1909 so as to prevent multifamily housing from being built there. And we know why, because there was a school right there and schools were segregated. And talking with people about that today, which we have begun doing, opens people's eyes. I mean, people start to think about, wow, I had no idea when I bought into this neighborhood as a, 40 years ago as a government attorney or whatever, I had no idea that I was coming into this kind of environment, that I was buying into this. So we're talking about educating people so that they can think about how to change this in the future. Yes, there are separate projects and campaigns that are very laudable and very wonderful that are going on. Well, look at the mayor's October 2019, her housing equity report. She looked at affordable housing in all 8 wards, and guess where she found the absolute least of it? Right here in Ward 3. So understanding the why of that is the beginning toward at least having conversation. You asked me about the HBCUs, the United Negro College Fund, the NAACP. What we were thinking about in seeking the initial funding for this were the institutions right here that arguably have been part of maintaining the discriminatory practices that we live, the impacts that we live with today. So the banks, the real estate agents, the mortgage associations, the developers, of whom there are, many, and I'm not talking about affordable housing developers, I'm talking about for-profit developers. It's getting these people who have real stakes in our community to look at what's happening here and think about how to contribute to a conversation going forward to create change. The local chapter of the NAACP, honestly, we haven't really thought about going to them and asking them for money. We're going to the banks and asking them for money, and to real estate agents and asking them for money, and to our congregations that have been in this, who have put down roots in this affluent part of the city. We're going to them for money to support this. So, and I, as I've said, I think to you, and I've said to James, and said to many people, Ms. Gray, many times, we would love to have UDC's input into this project, to have the substantive knowledge and the content, and have them, play a role in leading this discussion. Yeah, I feel too very passionately about what you brought up, and I appreciate that. Patty, did you want to say something in response to Commissioner?
I just wanted to add one thing, and Commissioner Hewitt, I also appreciate your comment, and I also appreciate your the need you see and the desire you see for Black and Brown voices to be part of this. The element I want to bring into that maybe hasn't been highlighted yet is the exhibit does show history. But the other piece the exhibit does is collect local stories. And even here, if you go back in history, there are Black and Brown families that were, whose property was usurped. And in those are stories of pain, of resilience, and we're wanting, that's part of the kind of history that would be unearthed during the consulting and conversations with the community that then become part of the exhibit. So I walk in and I know that the land my house is built on was purchased by the Chevy Chase Land Company in a move to actively prevent Black ownership, that there was a movement at that point in time by a group of Black individuals to own the land, and the Chevy Chase Land Company literally ripped it out from under them. So those are some of the kinds of stories that are meant to bring this home in a very personal way, so that I know that in my community, I am part of this systemic racism that has occurred, and I'm living it still.
So what you just said, and please remind me, Patty, hi Patty.
Hi.
What you just said, I did not read in your literature at all. And if that was up front, first page, and then built off of it, you've got something to sell. But what I see is a lot of vagueness, but you need to encapsulate what you just said. The other piece is, and I recognize what you said, you're acknowledging the shame is how I put that down, but it's also about how did it hurt others? And you've just said that, but you have to build off of it. It's not in there at all. So
yes,
thank you.
You're absolutely right. And I did want to just mention one other thing, that the National Fair Housing Alliance is partnering with us and has made already a financial contribution to this project and has an interest in partnering with us on some of the programming.
Thank you. I still need to see that, because right now I don't see enough for me, and it's just me. I mean, I'm 60.
Understood.
I have seen a fair amount and watched my mother go through a great deal amongst other family members. So I would say there needs to be more to it too. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
I think we talked at our earlier meeting, at our June 20th meeting, about the stories, the history of Reno City and Fort Reno, the history of the Chain Bridge School, the history of what happened at the Lafayette Pointer the Lafayette Pointer Recreation Area in Lafayette School. So we have many stories in Ward 3, going back to, after the Civil War into the early 20th century. And we want to collect stories like that from, not just from up at Chevy Chase, where we have a lot of material, but also around here, between Connecticut Avenue and Wisconsin, around UDC, and Intelsat, the land that was under that, what that land was originally. We learned just the other day that there were some faculty at John Eaton Elementary School on Reno Road, who are familiar with the history of covenants and redlining and racist practices in that neighborhood, the Woodley Park, Cleveland Park neighborhood. So we have a lot of research to do, and a lot of wonderful, good relevant stories to bring forward.
I just want to add on. Yeah. I just want to add, like, on my part as well too, because I know that Barbara, working with you for this project as well too. To me, like, my first impression of it was, like, I was really impressed by it. Like, DC is a very highly segregated area, and someone who is a person of color living in Ward 3, like, I am very aware that Ward 3 has much more white people than any Black and brown person across the district as well too. I'm also someone who, I work with Black and brown youth directly, and I see the effects of poverty and racism on them in the district specifically itself. I remember back in June 2020, when the George Floyd uprising happened, and there was this massive movement to make sure that people across, no matter what race, are just aware of racism in our country. And DC definitely has a very entrenched history of racism, segregatory practices, discriminatory housing, in the district in itself as it's well too. And to me, as a person of color as well personally, like, the fact that we want to bring conversation about race into a conversation, into Ward 3, that I'm going to tell y'all right now, people in Ward 3 are afraid to talk about race. They are afraid to bring it up in conversation. I brought it up in conversation with people in Ward 3 in ANC 3F, and they are afraid of it. They're worried about it because everybody's saying something wrong, saying something racist. And the way you do that is to have effective conversations and dialogues about it as well. Now, I appreciate Commissioner Hewitt's comment about making sure that Black and brown voices are put into the conversation, which is really important to me. And, like, I know that, like, that's something that you will be able to do in, like, your sort of further work with the advisory board, with the group and everything as well too. But to me, the fact that you are highlighting local Ward 3 stories, highlighting the history of Ward 3, which Ward 3 has a history of racial discrimination, like like there is a reason why Ward 3 has many more white people than Ward 7 and 8. And to me, the fact that we are bringing up in a conversation itself in the area, to me, is more than enough reason to bring up in the conversation, have UDC host it. I really appreciate that ANC 3C accepted it and brought it up as well too, because this is turning into a cross Ward 3 thing and event, which I know that you want to base it in 3F, which is awesome. But again, Ward 3 in itself has a history of racism historically, and there are people in Ward 3 that do not want to talk about it. But this type of event where it is participatory, it is local, it is grounded in stories about race and racism in Ward 3 is, to me, is more than enough reason to accept it, as well as be able to make sure that we're still kept in conversation. I know, Barbara, I'm assuming that you'll be able to come to ANC meetings in the future and discuss what is the update happening with there as well too, as well as making sure that you are addressing Commissioner Hewitt's concerns about like implementing Black and Brown voices. I mean, to me, I don't see it as like you are trying to like, I mean, yes, it is like a pitch in a way, but the idea is that it is much more than that. It is a conversation, is a dialogue. It is meant to express to people in Ward 3 about race, which for many people in Ward 3 are afraid to even discuss it and even say the words like Black, white, or brown.
But James,
And
James, you've now said that 3 times. Like all of the people on this call are people in Ward 3 who are talking about race. And as someone who grew up in Washington, D.C., I am a native and I'm a Ward 3 native. A lot of us talk about race. Barbara is here talking about race. Like, I mean, it's a trope, and it's very easy to say, oh, the white people in Ward 3 don't want to talk about things. I've been engaged my entire life with people in Ward 3 who want to talk about race. So I understand what you're getting at here, but that's like a really easy trope to go get rolling down. And I don't think it's fair, it's particularly in the 19 people who are still here.
I mean, this is based on just my own firsthand perspective of a person of color living in Ward 3. That is my own perspective. I'm just saying,
but you're saying people in Ward 3 don't talk about race. I mean, I've lived here for the better part of 48 years, and I've had a lot of I mean, here we are talking about it. There are a lot of members of this community who want to talk about it. I can't speak to your experience, but you're painting this with a broad brush. And so I'm asking you to step back from speaking with that broad brush and look at who's in the room with you here wanting to discuss this.
Okay, I hear that and respect that. But I just want to say to the commission, this is something to me that I would be able to support and vote yes on. This will further conversations about race in Ward 3, which to me are necessary.
And if I could just add, if it's helpful, the exhibit, my husband and I both saw the exhibit when it was at the Howard County Library in 2020, 2021. The years are merging. And one of the things, it's not only just the exhibit, there's programming around the exhibit. You go through it with a docent, and then there's opportunity for conversation. And so there's an exchanging of stories, of information. And one of the final panels on the exhibit explores the question of now what, so what? So it's meant to be a catalyst for action as well, which is a different kind of conversation that sometimes people don't go to or might be a little uncomfortable to enter, but they have a structure and way of doing it that helps facilitate it along.
Thank you. It's a lively discussion. Are there any questions from the community? Any questions from the community? Seeing none, are there any more questions from commissioners? Or comments from commissioners?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. The only comment I would have is I would like to see this presentation updated with the words that have been presented, sort of holding feet to fire, because right now it isn't, I need to see more. But thank you.
I have a question. I don't want to belabor this, it's late into the evening, but Patty and Barbara, to date, how much have you had contributions or commitments? And from who are they?
Patty, do you want to answer that?
Yes, I
I'll
thought
take
you
that.
might, I thought
Okay,
you might.
Bill will take it. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
We have had contributions from 4 houses of worship, 2 synagogues and 2 churches, the National Fair Housing Alliance, the National Association of Realtors, the Bernstein Foundation, and then the Bernstein Family Trust, United Bank. I could be forgetting, and the ANC 3C. As of now, we have a couple more houses of worship, and
We've had an anonymous
bank or
contribution
2,
as well.
seeking out. The whole idea was to have a broad-based community coalition. So we have the National Fair Housing Alliance. We also have the National Association of Realtors. And the idea was to have all voices.
So if I could just say on that comment, I think it's essential if you do want buy-in across the board, you need to seek in NAACP and make that hard pitch. And you're gonna have lots of questions, but you've got to be willing to do it.
That I appreciate that, Commissioner Hewitt.
Because if this is what you want to do, then you've got to put the United Negro College Fund, because they do fund HBCUs. UDC has been here present for a long time. At least in the 70s, I know they've changed locations. For you to get in HBCU buy-in, you need to show them, because they know the history. So they need to know that you know the history. So thank you.
Since this has been done in other municipalities, you're following, I'm guessing, the funding model of how the communities who have done it before have funded it?
Right. And it's been quite local. You know, the sources of funding that are gone after are quite local to that community, because the idea is that they have a stake in the community, a direct stake in the community.
I'm just trying to parse what Terry's asking, just to understand better. So I think it's the difference between who's funding it and who's working with you on the material.
Right, right. So we would reach out to, say, some historians, or to, actually, I have reached out to, we have reached out to Howard University and UDC. We haven't yet sort of gotten together and actually discussed it, but yes, Commissioner Carlson, regardless of the funding, we would reach out to the people at those institutions for content, for stories, for, to maybe be sources of research, people for the Designing the We professional researchers to connect up with. Yes. That's what we're trying to do.
You're not asking the NAACP and the HBCUs for money, but you are certainly collaborating with them on the content of what you're creating.
That's what we're trying to do. We reached out very, very robustly. Yes.
I just wanted to clarify that. Yeah, thanks.
But with all due honesty, though, we have not reached out to the NAACP yet.
Not to that
we take Commissioner Hewitt's comments seriously.
So could I just add, if you don't mind,
model has varied.
Just so you know, the NAACP is based in Washington, D.C. They do a great deal of work. When I worked at UDC, they are both the United Negro College Fund and NAACP. They have deep pockets. So if you do it right, you could get some money, as well as people to talk to, people to contact with. I think it's really important to know the history. It's important to know the history of Howard University's brown bagging policy. And I presume you know what that means. And if you don't, I'll be happy to tell you. I can tell you offline so we don't extend it. But I think it's important to understand these resources are right here. You don't have to go to California or Ohio or some other state. It's
We're
right
not,
here.
right, we're not going,
I know. I
appreciate
was,
what you're saying,
for-
yeah.
right. Yeah.
Going back to Commissioner Bear's question just for a second, we've raised, we have pledges for slightly more than the 42.5 that are required for this, are signing the contract. And we're still looking to raise the additional amount so that we can have the exhibit up for longer than 2 months and potentially have it in possibly more than one location. We haven't gotten there yet, but yeah.
In terms of percentage, you're like 50% to where you need to be and almost complete to where you need to be to sign the contract
Yeah.
with the designer.
Yes,
Okay.
that's about right. Mhm.
Are there any more questions from commissioners? Any more from the community? Are we ready to vote? Is there a
I think
motion?
we are. I motion to vote and approve of the grant application.
My second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any
Nay.
opposed? I'm sorry.
I'm not in favor of voting for it.
Okay,
until
one.
later.
Okay, so one unopposed, one opposed, and the
A second
motion.
opposed. I need more time on this. We need more discussion.
Two.
What is the grant? What is the quantity of the grant?
5,000.
It's $5,000.
5,000.
Two opposed, and the motion passes.
Thank you, commissioners, and I'm available to not only, we're available not only to answer additional questions, but also to keep coming back to these meetings and giving you an update on what we're doing. And maybe that will satisfy the concerns of some of the other two, of Commissioner Hewitt and Commissioner Bear. But Commissioner Hewitt, we do hear you on the your suggestions and your suggestions. We hear you.
And I'm sorry, Claudette and Ryan voted for, is that right? I didn't.
Yes, I voted aye.
And Claudette, did I?
Yeah. And so we will now move on. Did I remove a commissioner? No. We will move on to the next item on our agenda. I moved a commissioner, I'm sorry. The next item is the permitting request. Let me get Courtney back on.
I'm here.
You're not pinned. Okay. And that is Mitch, Commissioner Bear.
Right, I'm going to turn it over to Dave Landsman. He made a presentation at the June meeting and he is here to address some of the questions that we raised during that meeting. David, it's all yours.
Great, thank you, Mitch. Thank you, commissioners. Here for 4404 29th Street Northwest, our DDOT application, number 420857. We presented to you guys last month. We're looking at keeping the driveway generally in the same location, doing some reworks to flatten the grade a little bit and make it more drivable. Main outstanding item from last month was neighbor outreach, which we've done to the immediate neighbors, have support from one, no opposition from one, and no reply from another. So we've sort of scattered around, catching people the best we can in the summer, and are comfortable saying that you have no opposition to the driveway as proposed. Happy to answer any other questions you guys have.
Are there any questions from the commissioner?
No.
Any questions from the community? Did you get any comments from neighbors?
We did not. It was mostly verbal and non-opposition, no objection. And I should say that the homeowner, Jonathan Stoll, was joined and hung out with us most of the night. So I meant to introduce him at the beginning. Thanks for hanging on, Jonathan.
Sure.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Welcome, Jonathan.
Yeah,
What do you
hi, commissioners. I already live in the neighborhood, and for those of you who know my name, I actually grew up in the house that we're talking about. So it's great to see a lot of you. We did reach out to the neighbors, got one very positive response. As David said, one response, I think folks are just out of town, and then had a couple other conversations in the community, and people seem to understand. The house is great, but it's been there a long time. So looking forward to making some changes consistent with the community's interests, of course. And as David said, for the driveway, there's not going to be any additions that would, or changes that would cause any problems to anybody. So nice to meet you all, and thanks very much for your time on this matter.
Thank you. Any questions from the community? Any other questions from commissioners? Seeing none, are we ready to vote? Is there a motion?
I move that we approve this permit or this application.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstained? And the motion passes. Thank you, and Mitch will follow up with you.
Thank you, guys. Good night.
Have a good evening. Can I get a motion to end the meeting? Just want to say first, thank you everyone for staying on with us, and we'll see you September 19th. Enjoy the rest of your summer. Can I get a motion to end? James, you have something?
I was going to say that I motion to end this meeting.
All in favor? Oh, second.
Aye.
All right. Good night. And the motion
Good night.
passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night, everyone.